The radiologist stares at the scan for the third time, pulls up the calibration settings, runs the machine diagnostics. Everything's functioning normally, but the skeletal density reading is impossible. "We need to rescan," she says, her voice tight. "The machine's giving us false data." The patient is a 33-year-old man, came in for a routine sports injury assessment, suspected stress fracture from a fall that should have shattered his femur. He walked away, no limp, no pain. The scan shows bone density at 3.4 times normal human range. His skeleton registers denser than most mammalian bone structures, should be pathological, should cause brittleness, restricted movement, chronic pain. He has none of those symptoms. "Your grandfather," the radiologist asks, looking up from the screen. "How tall was he?" 247 centimeters, 8 feet 1 inch. "My great-grandfather was taller." The radiologist's hands shake slightly as she closes the file. "I'm referring you to genetics," she says, "because this doesn't fit any known human baseline." The genetic testing came back with 7 markers, 7 physical traits that appear together consistently across families that span 3 continents, families with grandparents who said the same thing generation after generation. Never research the family tree, never trace the surnames past 1850, never gather with the others. Don't look back. But some people did, and what they found suggests a bloodline that modern genetics can't explain, a population erased from official records, scattered deliberately, told to forget. There are 7 signs, physical impossibilities, traits that cluster in families across Siberia, the Carpathians, Central Asia, and scattered regions throughout Eastern Europe. Traits that identified descendants of something we're told never existed, the Tartarian giants. The archive sits outside Almaty, Kazakhstan, 3 hours into the Tian Shan foothills where the roads turn from asphalt to gravel and the air thins. A converted Soviet research station, windows that don't seal properly, wood smoke smell mixed with old paper and something else, ozone, like the air before a lightning strike. Dr. Vera Kuznetsova has been tracking these families for 28 years. She's 71 now, former anthropology professor at Moscow State University, forced retirement in 1997. They said departmental restructuring. She knows better. Her research was getting too specific, too documented, too impossible to dismiss. The main room is wall-to-wall filing cabinets, genealogical records in 23 languages, medical files, church registers, Soviet census data that was supposed to be destroyed. The temperature drops 7 degrees when you enter her study, always has, even in summer. She's measured it, can't explain it. On the wall, a map of Eurasia, red pins, hundreds of them, clustered in regions where official histories claim sparse populations, ghost territories, villages that existed for centuries, then vanished from maps after 1847. "These are the giant bloodlines," she says, her Russian accent thick but precise. "The families that carry all 7 signs. People come here when their medical tests contradict known science, when their genealogy searches hit walls at the mid-1800s, when their children display abilities no one taught them. They come when the doctors tell them the results are contaminated, when they realize their family was told to scatter for a reason." Dmitri sits at Vera's table. He's 29 years old, height 218 centimeters, 7 feet 2 inches. His younger sister, 203 centimeters. Their father was 231 centimeters. Their grandfather's military record lists him at 254 centimeters, 8 feet 4 inches. My grandmother was 157 centimeters, 5 feet 2 inches. The endocrinologist said the height should have regressed, averaged toward the mean, but it didn't. It accelerated. He describes the growth pattern, normal childhood, then at age 13, rapid acceleration, grew 43 centimeters in 18 months, medical impossibility. The doctors tested for giantism, pituitary function normal, growth hormone levels normal, bone plates normal, everything normal except the height itself.
I stopped growing at 19, he says. Just stopped, like something turned off. His sister grew until 22. Same pattern. Explosive acceleration during puberty, then sudden cessation. Vera opens a folder. Inside, a photograph from 1891, a family portrait. 7 people standing in front of a wooden church. The men tower over the door frame. Standard door height, 200 centimeters. The tallest man's head clears the frame by 60 centimeters. Your great-great-great-grandfather, Vera says, recorded height 267 centimeters, 8 feet 9 inches. Dmitri stares at the photograph. The doctor said that's genetically impossible from my grandmother's line. Unless her line wasn't the baseline, unless the baseline is something else. She pulls out church records. A village in the Altai Mountains. Population 1,847 people. Parish register from 1834. Notations in the margins. Average male height 213 centimeters. Average, not exceptional. The tallest individuals listed at 270 to 280 centimeters. The village was relocated in 1851 by Tsarist decree. Destination unspecified. The village doesn't exist on any modern map. The site was surveyed in 1923. Foundations of buildings with door frames built to unusual heights. Stone construction showing mathematics that Soviet engineers couldn't replicate. The site was sealed in 1924. Official reason, geological instability. My grandmother told me never to research the family, Dmitri says quietly. She made me a promise. When she was dying, she grabbed my hand. They'll find you if you look back, she said. They'll come for your children. Dmitri looked anyway. Found 89 families in Kazakhstan alone with the same pattern. Extreme height, acceleration, not regression. Grandparents from villages that disappeared. All told the same thing, never look back. The medical study was conducted at Novosibirsk State Medical University in 2001. Dr. Alexei Romanov tested skeletal density in 34 subjects across 11 families, published preliminary findings in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research. Bone density measurements ranged from 2.6 to 3.7 times normal human baseline. The medical term is osteosclerosis when pathological, but these subjects had no pathological symptoms, no pain, no restricted movement, no bone fragility, despite density that should make bones brittle and prone to fracture. The physics don't work, Dr. Romanov wrote. Bone this dense should limit mobility, but subjects demonstrate normal range of motion. Some are athletes. Performance metrics show no impediment. The paper was retracted 4 months after publication. No official explanation. Dr. Romanov's research funding was terminated in 2002. He left academic medicine, won't discuss the study, but he kept the data. Vera has copies. X-ray images showing bone density plotted against age. Normal human baseline in blue. The test subjects in red. The red line sits 300% above the blue. This density would be consistent with high gravity adaptation or skeletal structures built for bodies at a different scale. One woman in the study survived a car accident that should have killed her. Impact speed 87 kilometers per hour. Chest collision with steering column. Should have shattered ribs, sternum, clavicle. She walked away with bruising. The emergency room doctor ordered full skeletal scans, couldn't believe the bone density readings, called in specialists. They argued in the hallway. One said it suggests evolutionary adaptation to environmental pressures we don't understand. The other said that's impossible. The woman's grandfather was 241 centimeters tall. Her great-grandfather was one of 7 brothers, all between 235 and 262 centimeters, all from a village in the Ural Mountains that was dismantled in 1849. Bone density this extreme isn't random mutation, it's adaptation. The question is, adaptation to what? What environment requires bones this dense? What baseline population needs skeletons built to these specifications? The families learn to avoid medical imaging when possible, learn to not ask questions when their X-rays flag automated systems. One man broke his femur in 3 places during a construction accident. Doctors said 6 months recovery minimum. He was walking in 5 weeks, full recovery in 9.
They don't understand it, Vera says, because they're comparing against the wrong baseline. Dr. Oksana Mikhailova worked at the Institute of Molecular Genetics in Moscow for 19 years. Hematology, blood protein structures, genetic sequencing. She tested samples from families Vera sent her, double-blind study, looking for commonalities. What she found was a hemoglobin variant that doesn't exist in any human population database. The protein appears in the beta-globin chain, not a mutation, a variant, consistent across samples from families with no known genetic connection: Russian, Kazakh, Mongolian, Turkish, Uzbek families. Same genetic marker. This suggests common ancestry, her notes read, but geographic distribution makes this statistically impossible with known migration patterns from the last 3,000 years. The protein enhances oxygen carrying capacity. The red blood cells are more efficient. Cardiovascular performance in these individuals consistently measures 18 to 24% above baseline for age and fitness level. Athletes in these families don't understand why they recover faster, why their VO2 max numbers don't correlate with their training, why altitude doesn't affect them. Dr. Mikhailova documented one subject's performance at 4,600 meters elevation. Blood oxygen saturation measured equivalent to sea level. No acclimatization period, no altitude sickness symptoms. Subject reported feeling normal, the notes read. Heart rate and respiratory rate consistent with sea level baseline. This should not be physiologically possible without extended high-altitude adaptation. The research was moving toward publication in 2004 when the University Ethics Board raised questions about consent, about sample sourcing, questions that made no sense because the protocols were standard. Dr. Mikhailova resigned in 2005, moved to private practice, won't discuss the research anymore. But she didn't destroy the samples, kept them in cryogenic storage. Vera knows where. The protein sequence appears in populations that shouldn't be genetically connected unless they descend from the same source population, a population we're told didn't exist. She shows genetic sequencing data. The protein marker sits on chromosome 11. That segment includes other information: height regulation genes, bone density factors, and something else: immune function. The families don't get sick the same way. Common viral infections affect them differently. Symptoms are milder, recovery times shorter. Some barely register illness that hospitalizes normal populations. One family tracked illness patterns across 5 generations. Influenza strains that killed 2 to 3% of infected populations cause mild symptoms in their lineage. Average duration, 2.1 days. Normal population, 7 to 10 days.
A medical journal from 1919 documented the Spanish flu outbreak in a region near Omsk. Mortality rate in the general population, 4.7%. Among families later identified carrying the height and bone density markers, 0.3%. The researchers noted unusual resistance in certain family lines, but attributed it to isolation or hygiene. They didn't mention that these families averaged 215 centimeters in height. Vera has the original study. The researchers measured immune response time. The marked families showed pathogen recognition and response 40% faster than control groups. It's not immunity, Vera clarifies, it's efficiency. Their immune systems process threats differently. Faster recognition, faster response, more effective neutralization. The genetic markers cluster: height, bone density, blood proteins, immune efficiency. They travel together. You don't get one without the others, she says. It's a package, a consistent phenotype. This suggests deliberate selection pressure over many generations, or a source population with these traits as baseline. She pulls out genealogical charts, family trees spanning 9, 10, 12 generations. The markers appear reliably, dominant inheritance pattern. If one parent carries it, 71% chance the children express the traits. If both parents carry it, expression intensifies. This is why they told families not to intermarry, not to concentrate the bloodlines, because when they concentrate, the traits become impossible to hide.
Ekaterina is 31 years old. Height 209 centimeters, 6 feet 10 inches. She's sitting in the corner of Vera's study. Been quiet for 2 hours, just listening. Now she speaks. My bone density scan flagged at my last physical, the doctor says. My blood work shows the protein Dr. Mikhailova documented. I've never broken a bone, never had the flu, never been seriously ill. She works in Almaty as a structural engineer. Came to Vera because her grandmother died 8 months ago. Left her a letter. The letter said, "Don't look for the others. Don't gather in groups. Don't organize. They're watching for patterns. They'll come if you cluster, if you gather, if you make yourselves visible." Ekaterina looked anyway. Found 312 families in Central Asia with the same markers, same warnings from grandparents, same instructions passed down through generations. Forget, scatter, dilute the bloodline, never look back. But we're here, she says quietly, looking back, gathering the data. What happens now? Vera doesn't answer immediately. Outside, wind moves through the pines. The temperature in the study drops another degree. Now we document the other signs, Vera says finally. The sensory differences don't show up in medical tests. They're self-reported, consistent across families, unexplainable. They hear things, frequencies outside normal human range. Standard hearing, 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. These individuals report perception beyond that range. Infrasound below 20 Hz, ultrasound above 20,000. One man in Krasnoyarsk describes hearing electrical systems, not the hum of transformers, the individual wiring, can identify faulty circuits by the frequency shift in hearing. Electricians think he's guessing. He's not. A woman in Ulaanbaatar hears radio frequencies without equipment, not the audio content, the carrier waves. Can tell when she's near transmission towers by the pitch change in her hearing. Doctors test them. The tests come back normal, standard human range, but the perception continues. One man describes hearing building stress before structural failures, the subsonic vibrations in load-bearing elements.
warned his family to leave their apartment building 40 minutes before a support column failed, saved 11 lives. Engineers couldn't explain how he knew. The perception isn't consistent across all subjects, Vera says. Some hear lower frequencies, others higher. Some perceive electromagnetic fields as physical sensation, like pressure against the skin. An 83-year-old man named Sergei comes to Vera's archive twice a year. Height 216 centimeters. Walks with a cane he doesn't need. I could always hear the earth, he says, his voice rough with age. My father said his father could too. Hear storms coming 3 days out. Hear animals moving underground. Hear the stones singing. Sergei describes perception that sounds like synesthesia, sounds with textures, frequencies with colors. He walks into Vera's study and stops. This room resonates, he says, always has, feels like standing next to old machinery, something vibrating under the floor, under the foundation. Vera's tested the room. No unusual electromagnetic activity, no structural vibrations, nothing on any instrument. But Sergei feels it. So does every person with the markers who visits. My grandmother told me we're tuned differently, Sergei says. She said our people heard the old frequencies the earth used to sing before the Great Disruption, before everything changed, before the scattering. He won't say what changed, says his grandmother wouldn't tell him, just said the world used to resonate at different frequencies, and their people could hear it, build with it. The children show it first. Teachers notice. Parents notice. The children process spatial relationships differently. They see structures in mathematics that aren't being taught. They build things without instruction. They understand engineering principles no one showed them. Vera has school reports from 19 children across 8 countries. Same observations, same flags by educators. Unusual aptitude suggests exposure to advanced concepts beyond age-appropriate curriculum. But the parents didn't teach them. The children just know. A girl in Bishkek, age 6, built a scale model of a massive domed structure, not from a picture, from her great-grandmother's verbal description. The great-grandmother described it from memory, from what her grandmother told her. 3 generations of oral transmission. The girl built it anyway. Proportions accurate, architectural details correct, load-bearing mathematics sound. When engineers analyzed the model, they found optimal structural integrity. The design would work at full scale. How does a 6-year-old understand load distribution? The structural engineer wrote in his assessment. How does she know harmonic ratios for acoustic optimization? These are graduate-level concepts. The spatial ability appears early, age 3, 4, 5, building blocks in complex geometric patterns, drawing structures with precise proportions, understanding symmetry and balance instinctively. It's not intelligence, Vera says, it's recognition, like they remember something, something embedded in their perception. A boy in Astana became obsessed with acoustic architecture at age 7, no musical training, started drawing rooms with specific angles, specific proportions. His parents didn't understand, took him to a psychologist. The psychologist showed the drawings to an architect. The architect recognized them. Acoustic principles used in ancient amphitheaters, resonance chambers, sound-focusing geometry, mathematics that take years to study. The boy just knew. When researchers tested the proportions, they found optimal acoustic properties. The rooms he designed would amplify sound naturally, create harmonic resonance, enhance clarity without electronic equipment. This is genetic memory, Vera says. It has to be. Information encoded somehow, passed down not through teaching, through the blood, through the structure of perception itself. She's tracked 23 families where all 7 signs appear in the current generation. These are the rarest, the ones they watch most carefully. These are the families they told most forcefully to scatter, to never gather, to forget. The families trace back to specific regions: Carpathian foothills, Altai mountains, Tian Shan range, western Siberia, Ural mountains, scattered pockets throughout Central Asia and Eastern Europe. Villages that existed for centuries, then vanished from maps after 1847. An elderly woman named Tatiana lives 4 hours from Vera's archive. She's 93 years old. Stone farmhouse with walls a meter thick, roof sagging but solid. Her grandfather was 251 centimeters tall, died in 1931. Before he died, he told her something. He said, "We used to build the world," Tatiana says. Her hands shake, but her voice doesn't. He said our people built the great structures, the ones they can't explain, the ones with mathematics modern engineers can't replicate. He said they built them because they heard how the stones wanted to sit, heard the harmonic frequencies in the earth, built to amplify the resonance. He said we didn't build randomly, we built on the singing places, where the Earth's frequency was strongest, where the structures could resonate with the planet itself. She won't say more about the building, gets quiet when pressed, but she talks about the scattering. After 1847, she says, they started relocating families, imperial decrees, census reorganization they called it, but it was deliberate, systematic. Move this family to Kazakhstan, that family to Siberia, break up the communities, scatter the bloodlines.
Her family was moved 5 times in 4 generations. Altai to Urals, Urals to Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan to Kyrgyzstan, Kyrgyzstan back to Altai. Different villages each time, never the same region twice. They kept records, Tatiana says, of the tall families, the ones with the bone density, the children who knew things they shouldn't. They tracked us, made sure we didn't cluster, made sure the genetics didn't concentrate. She was told never to look for the others, never trace connections, never marry into families with the same signs. My mother said they'd come if we gathered, says Tatiana. Government men, researchers, they'd test you, take samples, take your children to special schools. The children never came back the same. She won't name the programs, won't give dates. Too dangerous, she says, even now. But I'm 93, she says. What can they do to me? I'm telling you, they tried to erase us, erase the bloodline, erase the memory. But you can't erase genetics. You can scatter us, tell us to forget, but the blood remembers. The church register is from 1823, village of Karaganda, Altai region, population 3,200. Parish records list births, deaths, marriages, notations in the margins. Stone builders, height range 240 to 285 centimeters, relocated by Tsarist decree 1848. The village was dismantled, population scattered across 6 provinces. The location doesn't appear on maps after 1851. Soviet archaeologists surveyed the site in 1961, found foundations, massive stone construction, buildings with 3-meter door frames, architectural mathematics that didn't match any known historical period. The lead archaeologist wrote in his field notes, "Construction techniques unknown. Stone-cutting precision exceeds modern capability. Acoustic properties suggest intentional harmonic design. Recommend extensive excavation." The excavation was halted in 1962, site sealed. Official reason, unstable ground conditions. The archaeologist was reassigned. His notes were classified. Vera has copies, smuggled out by a research assistant in 1989. The foundations show mathematical principles, golden ratio proportions, harmonic frequency optimization, structures designed to resonate with specific electromagnetic frequencies in the Earth. She shows photographs, stone blocks weighing 40 to 60 tons, fitted without mortar, tolerances measured in fractions of a millimeter. Our ancestors built these, she says, the people with the height, the bone density, the blood, the hearing, the knowing. They built the world's unexplained structures, and someone erased them from history. Tatiana mentioned the programs, special schools for gifted children, children from marked families, tested, studied. Some never returned, others came back different, quieter, wouldn't talk about what they learned, what they were taught to forget. There are documents, Vera says, Soviet-era programs, Ministry of Education, special aptitude schools, disproportionate enrollment from families in specific regions, the regions where the giant bloodlines cluster. The programs were disbanded in 1991, records destroyed. Officials claimed budget constraints. They don't want this population identified, don't want us tracing back to the source, because if we do, we find evidence, architecture, mathematics, engineering that contradicts the approved historical timeline. She pulls out a timeline, maps showing village relocations from 1847 to 1917, systematic dispersal. Families moved in coordinated patterns, separated, forbidden to gather.
Someone didn't want us concentrated, she says. Didn't want the genetics clustering. Didn't want us remembering collectively what we can build, what we can hear, what we know. Ekaterina is still at the table. So is Dmitri. So are 6 others who arrived this evening, ages 24 to 38, all with the markers, all told never to look back, all looking anyway. We're here, Ekaterina says, already gathered, already documenting. What happens now? Vera is quiet for a long time. The oil lamps flicker. The temperature drops. Now you decide if you're willing to be counted. Because once you identify yourself publicly, once you connect with the others, you're visible. The families who stayed scattered, who forgot, who married into different populations, they diluted the markers, made themselves invisible. She gestures to the people in her study. But you're here, concentrated. The signs are strong. If you organize, if you gather data systematically, if you start testing more families, they'll notice. Who's they? Dmitri asks. I don't know, Vera admits. Governments, institutions, whoever rewrote the histories and dismantled the villages and told families to scatter, whoever wants this population erased. Outside, the wind picks up. Pine branches scrape against windows. I'm keeping the data. I'm tracking the families. And when enough of you are ready, when enough of you decide to stop hiding, we'll have proof. Genetic proof, medical proof, architectural proof. She looks at each person. But you have to decide. Do you want to be found, or do you want to keep the promise your grandparents made? Stay scattered, stay hidden, dilute the bloodline. Never look back. The 7 signs are real. The markers appear consistently across families with no known connection. Medical documentation exists. Blood samples exist. Genetic sequencing data exists. But questions remain. Why does bone density 3.4 times normal cause no health complications? Where did the blood protein originate if not from known human populations? How do children recognize architectural principles they were never taught? What environment requires skeletal structures built to these specifications? What frequencies did their ancestors hear that we can't? Vera's archive remains. The families continue coming. The data continues accumulating. Some choose to connect. Others walk away. Keep the promise. Never look back. But the 7 signs persist. Height that doesn't regress to the mean. Bones that won't break. Blood that carries oxygen like it's adapted for different atmospheric pressure. Senses that perceive beyond normal human range. Children who build from genetic memory. Geographic ancestry from villages that vanished. And warnings passed through generations. Don't look back. Don't gather. They'll come if you cluster. But somewhere, in scattered families across 3 continents, the memory persists. Not in minds, in genetics, in the structure of cells, in the density of bones, in the resonance of blood. They told us to forget, told us never to look back, told us the past is gone, but the blood remembers, and some of us are listening.